How did they challenge you differently in the second half?
Just hotting me, sending doubles past half court. What I said earlier, don't touch me, I'm sizzling.
He's sizzling.
Yeah, you are. Well, you were still.
The Detroit Pistons are playing some of the best basketball we've seen them play as a franchise going back over a decade ago. And in their most recent win against the Boston Celtics, I just think they made a huge statement. And it's a multitude of reasons for why I'm saying that. Number one, going into this game, we have two of the hottest teams in the Eastern Conference. Going into that game, the Detroit Pistons were on a 7-game winning streak, and the Boston Celtics were on a 6-game winning streak. And then also we look at the fact that we go back to 2022, the Boston Celtics have had a winning streak against the Detroit Pistons since that year, their longest active winning streak against any other team in the NBA. So this was big time for the Detroit Pistons to get that monkey off their back, because the Boston Celtics, they've been beating up on us for the last couple of years. And then also, what made this win so big time for me is that this was actually this was an important game. It almost felt like a playoff game. When we look at what point in the season that we're in, we're almost in the month of March, which means the month of April is getting closer and closer. That's when the playoffs start. So we have teams like the Detroit Pistons, who are currently in the 6th seed. Their win last night gives them a good opportunity to possibly get the 4th seed and get home court advantage in the first round of the NBA playoffs. And then we also have teams like the Boston Celtics that are gearing up for playoff mode, because they're getting ready to go on that to try to attempt a run at a second championship. So this game mattered immensely for both teams, and when you seen the tip off, you could see the energy, you could see the frenetic energy from the start. Both of these teams did not want to lose this game. So for the Detroit Pistons to come out on their home court and make a statement win like this to basically beat up on the Boston Celtics. And this is my first time getting down to Little Caesars Arena this season, and it was an amazing atmosphere, and the players put on an absolutely fantastic show. But for those reasons right there, I think this was a big time statement win for the Detroit Pistons, and a win that could potentially boost the team's confidence even more. We've been seeing this over the last couple of weeks. The Detroit Pistons, they have a different energy, they have a different color about themselves, and I think a win like this against the defending champs is only going to boost that morale even more. And when we look to that win last night against the Detroit Pistons, and we look at the winning streak overall, and we look at the success on the season and how the Detroit Pistons have performed so far, I think it's best to first give the props to what they've been able to do on the defensive side of the ball, because I think that's what's been able to propel this team. And we look at the Detroit Pistons all season long, they've been steadily and gradually climbing the defensive rating of the team defensive rating rankings in the NBA. They now rank number 11th in the NBA. I'm sure by the time the end of the season is over with, they're going to be a top 10 team in defensive rating. And a big part that has to do with that, because the Detroit Pistons, they weren't always this high up on this season, but since they got Asar Thompson back and he's been able to play more and more minutes, him and Jalen Duren, they turned the Detroit Pistons into a completely different defensive team, because you have somebody at the rim protecting the rim and Jalen Duren, and then you have a monster of a defender in Asar Thompson. And we can look at last game for Asar Thompson. His defense was on full display, and he had Little Caesars Arena going crazy. There was a point in the game where Jason Tatum in the first quarter, he was heat checking us. He was going really crazy, hitting some crazy shots. He hit a crazy move on Cade Cunningham and knocked down a 3-pointer. And from that point on in the game, Asar Thompson was guarding him completely different. Asar Thompson, he finished that game with 5 steals. He was a monster in the half court defense, a monster in the fast break, and an absolutely fantastic game by Asar Thompson, guarding one of the best players in the NBA. And it was just so cool to be at the game. That was my first time seeing Jason Tatum, and the NBA, it looks so much better. It looks so much better in person than it does looking at it on your TV or looking at it on your cell phone. These guys are so damn good. But what the Detroit Pistons were able to do on the defensive side of the ball. They held the Boston Celtics, in my opinion, the best offensive team in the NBA. When we talk about what today's NBA is played like, that's what this team is. That's what this team is built for, the Boston Celtics. And the Detroit Pistons was able, and I know it was no JB, but still they still had weapons out the ass. So for them to hold these guys to under 100 points, I believe they had 96 or 97. Shout out to Coach JB Biggerstaff, and shout out to the Detroit Pistons. And also, the Detroit Pistons had a really good home court advantage last night. It was really cool. But also holding Kristaps Porzingis to 11 points. His last couple times that he's played the Detroit Pistons, he had 20 points, and we showed him a different coverage. We had him fronted the whole game with smaller guys, and as soon as he caught the ball, we collapsed and double teamed on him. Had him super duper frustrated all night long. So it was an amazing defensive performance by the Detroit Pistons. And I also think we got to see proof of tremendous growth from our young players in this basketball game. I think Cade Cunningham had a fantastic game against one of the better defensive teams in all of the NBA. He finished that game with 21 points, 11 assists, and he shot 9 of 21 from the field. And it was a very great game from him. He was aggressive all game long, and when he's aggressive like that, putting relentless pressure on the defense, relentless pressure on the basketball, it makes life a lot easier for his teammates. And that's why we seen him get those 11 dimes. And boy, when he's dishing the ball out like that, it is so fun to watch. Jalen Duren, once again, I think over the last 3 months, every single home game, he has notched a double-double. He was big time in this game. He had 13 points. He had 11 rebounds. And every little play that he makes, every offensive rebound, every putback, it gets the crowd going. It gets his teammates going. And then the guys that were brought in this offseason, they all, in my opinion, had fantastic games. Tobias Harris, he was very spectacular on the defensive side of the ball, at times being tasked with having to front Porzingis out of that post and also having to guard Jason Tatum on the basketball. And then he was able to be productive offensively as well, scoring 16 points. And then we also had Tim Hardaway Jr. pouring in 9 points in the starting lineup. And then off the bench, a guy that's been spectacular all season long, one of the biggest difference makers for the Detroit Pistons this season, Malik Beasley. He had a monster game against the Boston Celtics off the bench. He has 26 points, and he outscored and outshot Peyton Pritchard on the Boston Celtics, who's one of the leading candidates for Sixth Man of the Year. He was able to outperform Peyton Pritchard. And Malik Beasley, he was hot from the get-go, and all of the threes that he made that game was just flat out insane. So this was all around a great win for the Detroit Pistons. Marcus Sasser was great filling in for Dennis Schroeder last night. But this game right here, this is the type of game that does something for the team. It gives you so much more confidence. It gives you so much more momentum. Once again, like we said, for those reasons, the Boston Celtics, they're the defending champs. They've been beating up on the Detroit Pistons since 2022, and then coming into this game, this was two of the hottest teams in all of the NBA. So I'm actually glad I was able to get out and go experience this game in person. It's probably the best basketball game that I've been to in my young life. So the way that they were playing, I might have to go back on Friday and watch them beat the Denver Nuggets. And I know we're gonna win. I know we're gonna win that game because we're playing out of our minds right now. But that's what I wanted to talk about with you guys today. Like Cade Cunningham said a couple of nights ago, I'm sizzling, and that's exactly what's going on with the Detroit Pistons right now. These boys are as hot as fish grease. But if you enjoyed this video today, please leave a like, comment down below how you feel about this winning streak and the defeat of the Boston Celtics, and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtain.